Sulphur Springs Elementary with Brandi Wilson and Sandy Hughes. And today I just want to ask them about what are some of the different things that they've been able to implement at Sulphur Springs from the Tennessee Rural Life Grant. Sandy, what about you?
One thing that has benefited our classroom is we have received tech sets to and additional resources to support the literacy of my classroom. It provides students with a tangible resource to go to. We have also benefited from Chromebooks. We have received Chromebooks, a Chromebook cart to keep into my classroom. So it's
nice to not have to share it. Because before we would have a cart, but it might be split between the grade levels, and that made it hard to utilize in all your literacy, and especially when it came to writing. And that was one of the biggest things when we were purchasing things and trying to come up with our financial plan, was what resources are going to benefit us the most. And we felt like Chromebooks would be a really good one, because that offers the opportunity to really personalize the learning. And for us, being ELA teachers, writing is one way that we feel like we could really strengthen scores and strengthen their knowledge base, because obviously that's them telling us what they know. And so we have tried to use Google Classrooms and implement that into the curriculum, and also being able to use just Google Documents to where I can simultaneously be offering feedback to the kids while they're writing. So it's that immediate feedback, which makes it easier for them to make corrections as they go, and even helps them as they get further down in their writing, that they know, okay, Miss Wilson has already said this is an opportunity to, let's say, use perfect tense verbs. And so they can use that as they go down more in their writing automatically, and I'm not having to walk around the classroom. I can just click in and speak to each of them, and so I'm able to get to more students in one day. And with writing, that's hard. That's difficult.
It's very hard. It just provides a way for me to improve my instruction in the classroom, because it allows me to differentiate the learning and engage students with interactive lessons in a fun and engaging way.
And we use Nearpod. Nearpod is something that we're trying to use for the lessons, and we've talked about, I think engagement is huge. My student engagement has heightened tremendously since we've been able to have this resource, and we've been able to do things that are fun. You know, you have games in the classroom, but they're so used to having those at home, computers at home, phones at home. So being able to have those Chromebooks to where we could use it for learning, but in a fun way, makes student engagement so high that of course they're learning.
Right. So it's also supported your instruction and remediation, because your kids just have more access to different things, different programs like Newsella, where you can meet them at their level.
Absolutely. Things that we really couldn't reach otherwise with Chromebooks.
Okay.
And it saved resources like printing. So now that they all have their own Chromebook, they're able to go into Newsella, answer the questions. We get automatic feedback, and that was one thing with their writing where we started at the beginning of the year, was being able to use those Chromebooks in Newsella and have them answer that last question. That before, sometimes you don't have time to get to that, but I could automatically offer them feedback and tell them exactly things that they could change. I just have to save tremendously. It's helped with the writing so much.
All right, so what are some ways that I've helped you guys as a coach to help improve your instruction in the classroom?
Well, when we do collaborate, we collaborate on improving best practices in the classroom, planning instruction, strategies to support the individualized learning strategies. When we meet, it just really helps to improve my instruction in my classroom. It gives me resources that we can share out, and
able to just, you know, echo one another's thoughts. And we're so grateful to be a school that has a literacy coach here, but it's also nice to build that foundation, to have you in the classroom. Just that, you know, there's strength in numbers, and there truly is. And the things that you've encouraged us to do, and new things like we didn't think about, and with writing, you've helped so much. And I know I keep going back to writing, but I think that's just an area that we really need to strengthen. And we co-taught a lesson on writing and setting up a 5-paragraph essay, and that's something that we have used throughout this entire year. So that's huge for us, and just that sounding board to get resources and that support, and know you have our best interest at heart, and then you get our resources and then share with us some of the best ways to integrate those into the classroom, and how is that going to support our literacy instruction, and when we look at our data and some areas, when we take those mid-year tests like we just did,
Right.
when we're not doing well there, you have that data mine that you share with us. Okay, well, how about this? These are things I've seen.
I'm excited to try these new approaches and ideas that you shared with us.
Great,
So,
well, I'm glad. One of the things I think that's important to remember with the writing too, I think sometimes people get confused that what does writing really have to do with literacy? But one of the key things about students understanding what they've read is to write about what they've read. So that is a key aspect.
And that shows
of
us what they know.
Right, it absolutely shows individually what each student knows. So-
And that goes back to when you get into personalized learning, and we've talked a lot about, is it differentiation just at its best or on steroids? What's the separation
Right.
between there? And you have helped us,
distinguish
distinguish the
differences.
difference and show the social emotional side of it along with the personalized learning paths, and even connecting things like when we do writing, we were talking about child labor and social studies, and we took that opportunity to connect that to them so they could personally see how it would affect them if they lived during that time. So
Right.
there's, a narrative piece, but how would it affect them? And
Right.
what was a day like for them in that age? And so just implementing that in ways that are seamless where it could feel overwhelming, whereas you just give us the tools and resources, and sometimes just the vocal support of, you're
Right.
doing it, or you've
Right.
got it. Or,
Right. Right. Well, I think that's important, just having somebody that you're you can talk things through with. I think that's
Coaching us
been,
on it.
that's ladies. So, what are some of your concerns going forward from this point?
Well, even when we first started the program, our biggest concern was, what resources do we buy? And we wanted to make sure that we got exactly what would strengthen our classroom instruction. Where are we going to see the growth in literacy? Where are we struggling already? So the biggest concern at first was, what resources? And it was almost overwhelming in the sense of, we were just given this lump sum of money, and we had to use our professional judgment, go back in, look at scores, how are we going to implement these things? What's going to be the best use of the money, get the best bang for your buck, but still help the students. And
Right.
obviously you have the students in mind, along with standardized test scores. And that's the biggest thing, because you want to use that data to drive what we're doing in the classroom. So that was one of our biggest concerns was, did we buy the right resources? And that's something that we're still questioning, like, did we get the right resources? Are we going to see the growth we wanted there? Another thing is, being a teacher, just the overwhelmingness of so many things coming at you.
Right.
Things being offered from the state. Is this, in the sense, one more thing we have
Right.
to do?
Right.
And that has kind of been squashed, because I feel like we've been able to implement and integrate, and having you here has helped so much to be that sounding board and voice that we need to help support us. And then concerns I have still going forward would be, is what we're doing working?
Well, and it's funny, we were talking a little while ago about some of the different things that just the state was offering, and how you're saying that it all seems like it kind of ties together now that we're kind of
Yes.
looking at things where it seems like there's so many different things we're always having to learn, but it seems like we're all kind of going in the same direction now. And so
Yes.
we're trying to figure out how things tie together. So we might as well talk about, since we're just on a roll here, where are we going to go from here? What's our next step with what we're going to do?
We really, data is our biggest area that I feel like we really need to look into that. Like this year, we set up to where we spent a lot of the time getting together and collaborating on what were the best resources that we were going to be able to get with our coach, with our administrator, with all the ELA teachers
Right.
for the middle school. So planning that. Then now we have these resources, and it's, what's the best
We
way?
have data to look at.
Right.
To drive our instruction, look at those strengths and how can we enrich those, and look
Right.
at the weaknesses and how can we refine with the
Right.
resources that we have.
Right.
I think it's just huge, now that it's funny to say, we picked good resources, now how are we going to use those?
Let's use them.
How are they going
Right.
to be implemented? And then, even next year, our biggest thing is, and Sandy's kind of our data girl, is to be able to look at that and see, where did we do well? Did we see an improvement?
Right.
Did this instruction help? And just be very intentional about the coming year, what resources we do use, how, and maybe it's not even the resource, it's how we use it.
Yeah, well, and I think
Right.
that is the next step. We've gotten a lot of resources now. I think it's now everybody implementing it and really focusing on the personalization of the instruction.
And we're still
And-
learning. So
right.
that, we have those resources, and so we may use them, and then I love our PLCs have been strengthened tremendously because we've been able to say some of
Right.
the things that we have. And Sandy's units that she's doing, I've also implemented into 5th grade. And so her having those resources, she can say, well, this is what I use,
Right.
but here's some other stuff I had. Why don't you try this?
Right.
And because we have that to kind of pass around.
The bottom line is we want to see growth and
Yes.
we want to see achievement.
Right.
And I just really think that we are taking the right directions.
Right. Awesome. Great. Well, thank y'all very much. I appreciate your